Good morning, MegaPodlings. It's Krazy Joe here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and it is finally time to see The Grinch. I'm back at the AMC Theater. We're finally going to watch The Grinch. I've been waiting for this one. There's the movie poster. Interesting trivia, this movie was directed by Scott Mosier, who was the producer of a lot of the early Kevin Smith movies like Clerks. He actually played the role of Willem, aka Snowball, in Clerks. And now he's directing The Grinch. I actually sat next to Scott Mosier all day once. Back in like 95, 96, I was an extra. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the channel before. I was an extra in the movie Chasing Amy. And I actually sat next to Mosier all day while they were shooting the scene I was in. It was the hockey game scene. But and now he's directing The Grinch. I can't wait to see this. I am very excited. There he is, the Grinch. So I'm back from seeing The Grinch, and I have to tell you, I really enjoyed it. Let's get one thing out of the way from the beginning. Nothing is going to top the original 1960s Chuck Jones animated special narrated by Boris Karloff. That is the epitome of Grinch. You want the best version of the Grinch there's ever been. You know, aside from maybe the Dr. Seuss, you want to say the Dr. Seuss original book is the best version. Okay, but if we're talking about an adaptation, there's no beating the animated Chuck Jones version. This does not by any means top that. But it is much better, and I mean much, much, much better than the 2000 Jim Carrey film, which, no bones about it. I hate that movie. I really hate the Jim Carrey version of The Grinch. My biggest problem with the Jim Carrey version is that it fundamentally changes the story. Now, you have to expand the story. You have to, because you have more than 30 minutes to tell a story. You're not going to make a 30-minute movie. So you need to fill about 90 minutes to 2 hours. Only way to do that is to expand the narrative. But you can expand the narrative without changing the narrative. The core should be the same. You can add stuff to it, but the very core should be the same. And the Jim Carrey film, what they added altered the core of the story. They added this whole backstory for the Grinch in which it was revealed that and by the way, spoiler alert for an 18-year-old movie, they revealed that the Who's were horrible beings that chased the Grinch out of town. They treated him like garbage. They chased him out of town. They made him... he had every right in that movie to hate the Who's, because the Who's were hateful creatures in that movie. They were not nice. And if you read the Dr. Seuss original, we don't get a lot of backstory on the Who's, but the implication we're given is that the Who's love Christmas. The Who's understand the true meaning of Christmas. They get it. The Grinch could take their presents. He could take their trees. He could take all their material things, and it's not going to get them down, because they understand that Christmas is more than that. That's the material. That's not what it's all about. It's the Grinch who doesn't get that. And when the Grinch does get it, the Who's welcome him with open arms. They part, they let him come down. They let him carve the roast beast because he was always welcome. He didn't know he was always welcome, but he was. And as soon as he figured that out, the Who's were like, hey, where you been? Come on, carve our roast beast. The Ron Howard movie fundamentally changes that story and just makes them horrid creatures that mocked the Grinch and chased him out of town. That is not just expanding the story, it's fundamentally changing it. And for that reason, among others, but mainly that reason, I hate that movie. It really, I think, is, if you love the Grinch, and I love the Grinch, I love the story of the Grinch, I think that movie's kind of an abomination. That's just my opinion, but as a hardcore fan of the original story, I did not like the alterations they made in that Ron Howard movie. And I'm sorry, I'm quoting an article I read 18 years ago, so I'm probably going to, I don't remember where I read it. I can't cite where I read this because it's been 18 years of foggy memory. But I remember at the time reading an article with Ron Howard where he said he was not actually a fan of The Grinch, the book The Grinch. He wasn't a fan. He only wanted to make the movie because he wanted to work with Jim Carrey. And I feel like, no, you really needed someone who was a fan of the material. Tim Burton, I think, would have been a good choice to direct that movie in 2000 because I know Tim Burton's a huge fan of The Grinch. I saw, there was a documentary on TNT, like, it was an anniversary. I don't know, was it 25th anniversary? I don't remember. This is years ago. There was an anniversary of The Grinch where TNT aired it in a 1 hour block. And 1/2 hour was The Grinch, and 1/2 hour was people talking and reminiscing about The Grinch. And Tim Burton was in there, and he talked about how much he loved the story of The Grinch. So he was a hardcore fan, and I think that is a movie that would have been prime for his sensibilities, especially at that time, because Tim Burton's changed. You know, Tim Burton today is not what Tim Burton was once upon a time. But at that time, I think it was a movie that was just right in his wheelhouse. I got Jules poking me in the back here. Hello, Jules. He's back there. There he is. Hello. So let's talk about the new Grinch. I've reminisced enough about previous versions of the Grinch. The new one, pretty solid. Pretty solid. I like it. They, unlike the 2000 version, they get the Who's right. The Who's are lovable and cheerful, and they have no hateful feelings towards the Grinch. The Who's are correct in the new movie. The animation, good. Really good animation. Benedict Cumberbatch, it gives a great performance as the Grinch. He's able to really embody the Grinch without copying anything Boris Karloff or Jim Carrey did before him. He's his own Grinch. He manages to capture the spirit of the Grinch without imitating any of those very memorable performances, especially Boris Karloff. What are you doing? You gonna knock stuff down? He's ready to knock stuff down. So, my one gripe is the music. It's got the absolute worst rendition of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" I think ever recorded. It's horrible, and I'm like, man, really? That's what they did with "You're a Mean One"? Please don't knock the tripod over, Jules. Please don't knock the tripod over. I really hated the "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." Yeah, that's pretty much my only gripe, really. A lot of the new characters introduced, like his next door neighbor, Mr. Bricklebaum, who it's Kenan Thompson. He's a lot of fun, and there's a reindeer named Fred in it. Fred's a lot of fun. There's a recurring goat who's seen in the trailers. The goat is hilarious. I recommend this movie. I recommend it. It's not going to replace the Chuck Jones, or maybe for you it will. It's never going to replace the Chuck Jones version for me, but this is a good, fun, alternate version. I took my stepdaughter. She just turned 11. She really dug it. So this is a fun holiday movie. I say check out The Grinch. And keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander pajamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.